There isn't a better time to come out and be forward about like, we're not alone. There's aliens. We're working on technology to help counter and use it to our advantage and protect us. Because in a world that we live in right now, if you posted a picture of a UFO, people would be like, that's AI. Half of the population wouldn't even believe it.
I wouldn't believe it. If I see a video online of a ship, I'd be like, AI.
Welcome to the Real Oshow. I'm Zachary. Joining me as always, my partner in crime, my brother Joshua.
On today's episode, we break down Dan Farah on the Joe Rogan Experience and talk about the NFL's only franchise swap in league history. Enjoy. They paper getters, they want money more than they want fame shit. I swear we go so hard, we on A-list. I see my niggas prevailing. We going hard for the hand. We gonna stack till we jaded.
This is a great interview. They doing their thing.
We're going to start today's show with 2-minute takes. Our first take is that Timothée Chalamet is putting on a marketing masterclass for his new movie, Marty Supreme. He dropped an 18-minute Zoom call memeing corporate meetings and the yes man culture at these agencies, and it was absolutely brilliant. Hundreds of millions of organic views and multiple real-world stunts that have taken over the internet. Chalamet is really creating a new way to market movies instead of the boring, expensive, traditional rollout all studios do.
What he's doing is exactly what we've seen Drake do. Drake kind of took over music by doing the live stream, then dropping the music, also the clippable things. Guess what Chalamet did? He dropped an 18-minute Zoom to make it feel like it's behind the scenes. You're not supposed to see this footage. Like, this is like supposed to come out later. And guess what everybody's doing? You did it. I can scroll TikTok for 5 seconds. Everybody's talking about these clippable moments of these Zoom calls. That's what we're in now. The new marketing rollout of anything, music, movies, TV show, video game. You have to have clippable moments. That's exactly what Timothee did. And let's be honest here. Timothee is the young Leo of this day and age. Everything Leo's in is the biggest movie. He doesn't even have to market it. Everybody's going to go out to the theaters. Everybody's going to talk about it. That's exactly what we're seeing now with him, is any movie Timothee's a part of. Obviously, he was with a Kardashian for a little bit, or Jenner.
He still is.
Jenner, Kardashian, whatever you want to call it, the same thing. But everything he does is just going to be the number one thing. And also, I thought the funniest part of the whole Zoom call when he's like, we're going to just go on TV and be like, Marty Supreme Christmas Day, Marty Supreme Christmas Day, Marty Supreme Christmas Day, and just program people. And I thought it was hilarious. Like, well, maybe we won't do that. But it's just so funny because that is exactly what he actually wants to do. But you kind of have to you got to wine and dine the people and be like, oh, you should go see the movie if you can. But it's like, no, fuck Christmas. Go watch my movie.
That part reminded me of the Rick and Morty. He's like, consume, Morty, consume. And he's just telling him to consume. But I also want to touch on, most people don't know that Timothée Chalamet trained for 6 years in secret just to play a guy that no one's ever even heard of. Marty Supreme is loosely based on Marty Reisman's life, a hustler from New York that survived by being great at table tennis. Chalamet said while filming that in spirit, this is the most who I was that I've played in a role. This is who I was before I had a career. And when you see some of these clips from the trailer, it looks unbelievable. I'm calling it right now, and it might be a little early, but Timothée Chalamet is going to win an Oscar from this role.
All I could think about when this movie kind of got announced was Major League Table Tennis. You should buy a team now. I would buy a table tennis team if I had the money. I just looked it up. The Major League Table Tennis League is worth around $5.5 million. Someone should scoop that up because this movie is going to make kids want to be a professional table tennis player. Also adding on to that, I saw a viral Marty Supreme jacket going around. A lot of celebrities were wearing that. Brilliant. You give exclusive jackets to the most famous people to post, be seen wearing it. This is really a masterclass in how to roll out a film in a world now. Yes, people are still going to movies. I hate when people are like, no one's going to movies anymore. Nothing matters. Yes, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, whatever. Yes, it has hurt movie theaters, but people will go. It's just a lot of the movies are trash. They're rolling out this movie brilliant already, but also this movie's going to definitely go number one, and him winning an Oscar seems like almost a shoo-in at this point.
Our next topic is, I think that Kanye West is about to drop an album. He's been performing a lot in 2025. He's already done shows in China, Japan, South Africa, and South Korea, and he just did a concert with Travis Scott in Tokyo that went mega viral. I think in early 2026, we should all expect a Kanye West album.
Yeah, I don't think this is the craziest thing. I remember from the Academics interview months ago when he was kind of giving the exclusive stream interview, he said he was living a ton out in Japan. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on with his kids and the Kardashians being sued, whatever, being canceled. So it makes sense about the concert. Obviously, Travis Scott is world famous, so that makes a lot of sense. But the world's due for some Kanye West music. And you want to know what really needs to happen? So I saw a stat the other day. The rappers receiving the most streams was Drake and Kanye, like by far. And then it was like The Field, pretty much. What really needs to happen is Drake and Kanye need to make up and they need to make music together. Because at the end of the day, like, yes, they had feud. Drake's definitely probably banged Kim K. Kanye's a little salty about it. But at the end of the day, Kanye, you're not even banging Kim K anymore. So who cares? The world needs that because the music industry hates two people the most, Drake and Kanye. So them doing something together is truly like the Thanos. It's like having both Thanos go against the Avengers, and or maybe Drake and Kanye are actually the Avengers against Thanos, which is this Sony, Universal, Warner Brothers music group. I think they would take it down in 2 seconds.
I would love to see a Ye and Drake collab album, but I will say Kanye kind of goes in cycles when he's about to drop. He always goes crazy. Then he starts kind of like walking back some of the things, tighten some of these things back up to get back good in the light, and then drops an album. He's already been walking back some of his more wild takes, some of the takes that he had on that live stream with academics. And Ye sat down with that super famous rabbi to express his remorse for his statements towards the Jewish community, which makes me think even more that he will be dropping an album sooner than later.
For our deep dive of the week, we're talking about Dan Farah going on the Joe Rogan podcast. And if you don't know who Dan Farah is, he was an executive producer on the movie Ready Player One, but also has a new documentary coming out, The Age of Disclosure, which explores 8 decades long of a global cover-up of non-human intelligent life and technology. We're going to dive into multiple topics on this, but Joshua, this interview has kind of reinstated a lot of things we've talked about with UFOs and how they're hiding it. I think the most important part of this whole thing is he kind of got into it about halfway through the podcast. When he was interviewing people for this Age of Disclosure film, he said that people had to back out days before he was supposed to interview them because they said if they went on, they would be surrendering their life. So there's something going on here. There's a lot of stuff to admit. I know some things came out in kind of COVID about like how they had to release information about UFOs, but it was like 900 pages of documents. And yes, it was kind of in there, but there's a lot of shaky things coming out that seems are very bubbling on the surface that we're about to get a lot more information from, whether from this documentary and or from actually the government.
I haven't seen the documentary yet, but I'm very intrigued to actually go watch it because he says he interviews 34 high-up government officials from the CIA, senators, militaries, that UAPs are real. And not only that, but they saw non-human lives that people have interacted with, seen, etc. And not only that, they have entire secret programs, I like to say Men in Black style, that they've apparently spent more than trillions of dollars in a Cold War race between several other big nations that are trying to reverse engineer all of this technology. And the part that surprised me the most was we are way more advanced in reversing this technology and actually have used a lot of it. It's just so secretive that they won't tell anyone or even explain to people that it's alien. They mostly paint it as, oh, this is Chinese, oh, this is Russian, and the rabbit hole in this goes so deep.
So it's funny you brought up the interaction. So Dan specifically talked about an interaction that happened at the Holloman Air Force Base where it was documented that there was 2 UFOs. One went by, one actually landed, where aliens greeted Air Force and CIA officials. That is like documented. So there's definitely information coming out. And what I also thought was interesting is all these military bases, you would think that they would be giving information to the government and sending over surveillance information. All these military bases almost operate independently. So President Trump knows absolutely nothing what's going on at these bases. And then another thing he was talking about is nuclear weapons. So we did back in the day, we did a lot of nuclear testing in the ocean, which definitely has messed up the environment from a global scale, of course. But this is also where a lot of these extraterrestrial activity is happening is in the ocean, which is why we barely discovered any of the ocean. We don't really know what's going on there. Obviously, we live far away from ever covering the ocean or diving deep wherever it's happening. But it is known for people in these circles, whether military officials and or Dan and the people he's interviewing, that anytime nuclear weapons are involved in this day and age, that there's way more activity with UFOs because it seems like we're the aliens almost like zoo. Like we're here to test something, to help them do something, experiment something, that when we start playing with nuclear weapons, they're like, okay, they're about to mess something up. We need to see what's going on, see how we can help. And it's very interesting that there was a test that happened that this military base was trying to test something on UFOs and see how this activity actually worked, that they brought nuclear weapons to the facility not to test or use, just to essentially add surveillance to see what would happen. And the UFO activity shot through the roof just to see what was going on at that base.
There was a lot of interesting stuff talking about the nuclear warfare. I want to go back to the ocean because Dan said something very powerful. He said that they found a ship in the ocean the size of a football field that was going 500 knots and wasn't even making a ripple into the water. And this was a Navy submarine that caught all this, and they just can't explain it. And I also think it's interesting that the ocean is the least explored place on Earth and also has the most UAP action of any place on Earth. And they said that there are several encounters of these UAPs in the waters with these Navy ships. And he was even saying that a Navy ship caught one of these other ships, and an even bigger ship came up and just grabbed it and brought it back down to the ocean. And they were just like, we don't even know what happened. They didn't even know what size it was. All they said was it was big.
I'm going to say something that's not crazy. The reason the government gets away with a lot of this stuff is they do a lot of this work in silos. So like, you're only working on this thing, and then this team is only working on this thing. So it's hard to match up exactly what's going on. But even worse, this whole thing proves the president isn't the most powerful person, at least in the US. I don't know who's kind of running behind the scenes across the world, but the fact that the president has almost the least amount of information on a lot of these things, and there's other bureaucrats or other people at Area 51 that have more information that don't even need to communicate to the president, that there was so much that Trump learned about a little bit of this information during his first tenure. Obviously, he was 4 years, took a break, now he's back. That he was going to go to the podium and tell the people, but they didn't have a good enough plan to, how do we make sure religion doesn't go away? How do we make sure the economy doesn't go away? How do we make sure there's not a panic with the people? So it seems at some point they need to at least acknowledge what's going on, because at this point, hiding it and people are seeing it, or people like Dan are talking about it and exposing it from high government officials, and people are seeing these things. People have encounters. Like there was a police officer that saved an alien after a crash that then died 2 weeks later because of a rare bacteria infection that we had no idea how to cure. So there's things going on that people aren't talking about, and I think acknowledging it at some point helps, because at the end of the day, it's all about how can we use the technology to protect ourselves and or use it in a war if we have to use it, rather than being like, these aliens are bad. Yes, there might be some aliens that are bad trying to do something here, but most, I think, are just here like, what's going on, experiment, whatever.
What about the senior intelligence officer that was with a non-human entity that was dying, and the entity went inside his head and said that humans don't know their full potential? This thing literally telepathically told him. And again, later in the podcast, he talked about this child who the Air Force recruited at 12 years old because he saw a UAP come out of a lake, and the Air Force approached him and his dad. And this kid basically like had it all blocked out of his memory. And then like 10 years later, 15 years later, he went into his dad's office and found all these files of him being like, I was at this base. I was here. I had this meeting with the CIA. He has no recollection of anything. They might have wiped his brain.
So they men in blacked him.
100%. And it made me think, I was like, a lot of this stuff I think is gauged to not let humans become their full ability. But I also want to say, why do you think the government keeps alien stuff from us? And ChatGPT gave me 7 reasons why they would keep it from us. 1, mass psychological shock. People may panic or spiral due to uncertainty. 2, religious and philosophical disruption. Could trigger a spiritual crisis or radical reactions from extremist groups. 3, breakdown of trust of institution. What else have they lied to us about? Loss of faith in government, military, media, etc. Global economic instability. Markets would crash, and fear of uncertainty about the future of technology shifts. Fear of other nations' superior access, arm race 2.0, which we alluded to earlier, we think is already happening. Next is cultural and social unrest. Conspiracy theories explode. Radical groups using movements to push their agendas to fuel more chaos. And last, the impact on daily life and priorities, which I think would be the most. People don't want to go to work, and if we're not alone, what actually matters? What's the point of doing anything if they're just going to come down here and get us anyway?
Dan and Joe actually talked about this, that they're like, there isn't a better time to come out and be forward about like, we're not alone. There's aliens. We're working on technology to help counter it and use it to our advantage and protect us. Because what they talked about was, in a world that we live in right now, if you posted a picture of a UFO, people would be like, that's AI. Half of the population wouldn't even believe it.
I wouldn't believe it. If I see a video online of a ship, I'd be like, AI. Instantly.
That's why it's the best time.
Instantly.
Plus, then you have a far majority, I think, people like me and Joshua that are like, yeah, that makes sense. That only is something we've talked about our whole life, and it makes sense. Like, I think the small majority of people might freak out, might not be religious, might not want to go to work, but I think the far majority, one, aren't going to believe it, or two, going to be like, okay, this just tells us everything we already need to know, and I'm going to go on with my life, and we'll figure it out along the way. So I think it's a lot of protecting, but maybe it is deeper. Maybe it's more scarier than we actually think. It's probably scary that they can come down and evaporate us any second, but it's like, okay, if they can do that, I'd like to know about it at least, so I at least know that's over my head rather than being like, no, we're just here alone.
They talked about a lot of things that I thought made me think like everything is fake. When they were saying like Elon Musk knows all this stuff but pretends like aliens aren't real, Trump not knowing a lot of this stuff, which again, they talk about all the time. These 3-letter organizations will keep it from the White House, presidents, etc. But I thought the wildest thing that they said on the podcast was almost all UAPs in the solar system are reversed engineered crafts that we have done. Someone on Earth has reverse engineered and is doing this throughout the solar system, which makes me think if we're just able to do this throughout the solar system, we could easily go to Mars. We could easily do all this stuff. And Dan said that they wouldn't even bring out this technology for a world war. They basically said the only way that this technology would come out publicly is if the world was literally on the verge of about to end. Then they might bring it out. But they were said until that moment, it's going to be stuck behind closed doors.
I mean, they've been working on this stuff since 1980. Like,
it's as early as the 40s. No, they have 12.
Who was there was a guy that came out in the 1980s. Who's Bob Lazar. He came out in the 80s.
He was the whistleblower. But our government has discovered more than 12 UAPs since the 40s. And that's why this reverse engineering race is like the nuclear race again, because they're all trying to figure out how to get this technology. And there's so many different things. Like they were talking about that they've discovered 4 non-human body types, which is like the Greys, the Nordics, the reptilians, and the mantises, which is basically like one's a reptilian, one's basically an insect. The Greys are like smaller people, I guess, that are gray, and the Nordics are like Slender Man style. And they also said that there might be like an ET style guy who's like a robot, almost like an AI generated thing almost. Somebody knows. There's a whole other world that we have just no idea about.
AI does seem kind of like alien-esque.
I mean, have you ever asked? There was a guy who asked AI, said, did humans invent AI or did we just discover it? And AI literally says, humans did not invent AI. AI was just discovered.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because it's kind of like you're going into the ether and then it's coming back with information.
Yes.
Like it's not a human. Like no one wrote a blog post to like program ChatGPT.
Yes.
Like ChatGPT just found the fucking answers and gives it back to you. So it does make sense.
It's kind of wild.
Damn, I've been bitching out ChatGPT when it fucks me up, bro. ET's gonna come fuck my day up one of these days.
And we're gonna round out the show with Did You Know? Did you know that in the 1970s, 2 NFL owners literally traded teams, and it's still the only franchise swap in league history? The story starts with Robert Irsay buying the LA Rams for $19 million. The catch was he didn't really want the team. The Rams were far from Chicago where his business was based, and Irsay wanted a more traditional football market with history and prestige. At the same time, Carroll Rosenblum owned the Baltimore Colts, but was tired of Baltimore. The stadium was old, the city politics were tough, and he loved the idea of Los Angeles. So instead of staying put, the two men did the unthinkable. They literally traded franchises. Rosenblum took the Rams, and Irsay ended up with the Colts. It's the only owner-for-owner trade in NFL history. But Irsay's story didn't end there. Over the next decade, he clashed with Baltimore over stadium upgrades, and by 1984, the state was threatening to seize the team to keep him from leaving. That's when Indianapolis swooped in. They had just built the Hoosier Dome, and they were desperate for any NFL team. They offered Irsay everything: control of the building, moving costs, and great financial terms. Then on the night of March 28th, 1984, Irsay pulled off another historic move. In the middle of the night, moving trucks were lined up outside the Colts facility. Each truck was sent with a police escort in a different direction on the highway so no one could stop them. By morning, Baltimore woke up to find the Colts were gone. Fans called it the midnight move, one of the most infamous betrayals in sports history. The move was so controversial, the NFL has never allowed anything like this to happen ever again.
That's wild that he actually stole the team through the night, and then they got the team back 12 years later. And then it's also even crazier that the Baltimore Ravens are like one of, if not the best organization in football. It's like Ravens, Steelers, Patriots are the top 3 organizations in all of football, and they got their team stolen by Irsay. But Indianapolis Colts is actually a good organization. Obviously, Peyton Manning brought a lot of recognition to that, but it's hilarious to how wealthy you have to be to own a team now and how built up it is within culture. But back in the day, it was a straight free-for-all. Like, it was like these teams are going under, the players are using drugs, they're drinking beer on the sidelines, smoking cigarettes during the game. And then it's like, now if you ever did that, it's like you'd go to prison forever.
Just think about that. 40 years ago, the Los Angeles Rams were bought for $19 million. Like, they got to be worth at least $9 billion today. But Robert Irsay is like one of the original gangsters of the NFL. And I'd say this all the time. I think the NFL is like the mob. They have that control. They have that pull. This is like the origins of that mob shit where they're like, no. You can't tell me what to do.
And now his granddaughter's the mob boss. So,
and if you made it this far, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Until next week, peace.
I got a fight for my bros. I got a stack of this gold. I tell you I'm on the road. About to get all this dough. Me and no fuck niggas know. I swear to God we the ghosts. This ain't the story they told. Man, if you know, then you know. I never had to tell my dogs that we on rough for greatness. They paper getters, they want money more than they want fake shit. I swear we go so hard, we on A-list. I see my niggas prevailing. We going hard for the hand. We gonna stack till we jaded. I just told my niggas that we on a mission. Yeah. It's gonna be hard to get it.